In order to understand how you attract the attention of the tax office, you must first know how does the tax office control you. So the tax office has multiple powers to investigate on your position, and they are all based on data available to them. So the first layer of control is automatic controls, which means that if you do not know, the Italian tax office has much data that is in XML format. I'm not a computer science geek, but it's very easy to know that it's easier to cross-check data if it's XML, if it's based on informatic data, instead of having it on paper. In fact, the making tax digital buzzword was a buzzword in Italy 15 years ago. Almost every tax return, tax payment, tax information is now dematerialized, and it's very easy to cross-check data. So just to give you an example, if you file your return, you have an XML data showing who filed the return, how much money, how much income was made, how much tax you have to pay, and when you have to pay that. And whenever you pay a tax return, the F-24 form, there's also an XML data that says who paid, when that money has to be paid, and what for, what type of taxes. So it's very easy to cross-check that. So they can say, hey, you owed 10,000 euros of income tax and we only see a payment of 9,000 euros, so give us the difference. And that also works if you overpaid. The tax office will notify you, hey, you overpaid that, you have that tax credit, please confirm that. So, but that is information that is already in the system. So it's easy to understand that if you provide the tax office with information, they just use it against you. The second level of control is documental controls. So if you're not aware, in the tax return, you only check boxes. You put numbers into boxes. So the tax office has some codes that tell you if any box compared to the others might be suspicious. So you might have spent too much on publicity, or you might have been at loss for too much time. And that also takes into account the status of the industry you work in. So maybe you've been at loss for 3 years, but you just start up, or you are in difficult business because there's a global recession. They take account of that. And there are also some metrics within the numbers. So based on the amount of revenue you make, you might be spending too much or too little on something. So that might give a red flag, and the tax office sends you a document request. In your tax return, you do not provide any document, any supporting evidence. But if a red flag is raised, then you have to produce those. And then they check if those documents are actually congruent with what you put in that box. But once again, this is if you are in the system. And a good way to bounce the tax office is to do stuff overseas. At least that's what you think. In fact, the most common way to get caught by the Italian tax office is the foreign tip-off and the cooperation among jurisdictions globally. So you might think there's the European Union, the DAC 6 ruling that provides an automatic exchange of information, the common reporting standards, they exchange other type of information, and yourself that you might file taxes somewhere else, you might provide information to other jurisdictions, putting out that you are a tax resident of Italy. So of course this information get exchanged, and they know what happens abroad. They might not know it now, they will know it down the road. And that creates a problem. So undeclared profits, undeclared assets, undeclared wealth will be subject to monitoring. And finally, the tax office has access to public register. So the spot is not administered by the tax office. They have access to banking information, they have access to land register, they have access to any registered items, for instance, cars, yachts, boats, etc. And they also have access to any public office information upon request. They do not need to go through a judge with a warrant, they just inquire that. So those are basically all the ways the tax office monitor you. That's the big brother, and you must be extremely aware that whatever you do, you just leave cookies around, and those can be used against yourself. So once again, great planning, use of society or corporation to make stuff more complicated or easier for you to administer, and beware that if you operate outside of Italy, you might get caught as well.